Do we have sound? Yeah. Okay. Apparently we thought we didn't have sound there for a second, but now I think we do. And so we'll start that over again. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Scott Reisch. This is Crime Talk, and we are here on a program. We are both live on YouTube as well as Facebook, so we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hopefully the sound is better, but apparently we're still having an issue according to the comments. There we go. Apparently we got some sound now. Okay. All right. Once again, I think we got the audio resolved. So my name is Scott Reisch. This is Crime Talk. This is where we talk about items in the news, true crime-related matters, as well as anything related to criminal law, procedure. There's so much that is intertwined when it comes to criminal law. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Scott Reisch, and I am a practicing criminal defense attorney here in the state of Colorado. Have done so for 25 years. I have tried just about every kind of criminal case you can possibly imagine in both state and federal court, and I've tried cases outside of the state of Colorado and various federal matters throughout the United States. And I've also done several court martials, not only when I was a judge advocate in the United States Marine Corps. I also occasionally do a courts martial just about, I don't know, it seems like they come every couple of years. At least I get an inquiry to do so, and they're always fun because you're now that civilian guy, rolling into town that kind of pokes fingers in people's eyes. If you can't be nice to everybody, then that's what you got to do. And local defense counsel, gets to do it. So, like I said, we've done just about every type of criminal case, you name it, from homicides all the way down to little DUI cases. Frankly, I like the guns and knife kind of stuff. White collar stuff is interesting as well, but it's usually about the, what's on the paper. We like the guns and knives. That's the good stuff. And I'm not trying to, minimize, not trying to be insensitive, but listen, everybody knows that there are lots of bad people in the world. Nothing's changed throughout the beginning of time, nor is it going to be. A big group hug is not going to change it. People are going to do things that are against the laws of the community. And fortunately, here in the United States, we have the United States Constitution for everyone to protect everyone who's accused of a crime, because our founding fathers didn't trust the government. They didn't trust them to get them to trial promptly. They didn't trust them to let them call witnesses on their own behalf, and didn't trust that you could be compelled to testify against yourself. So our founding fathers, very, very smart individuals. Obviously, they had a little work to do. They made a little, some mistakes there, but they've tried to correct them along the way. So we are here tonight to talk about really kind of whatever you do. We saw that there was a super chat there from Susan. We always appreciate super chats, although, you don't have to do those at all. And, but we appreciate it. That's for sure. Because, let's face it, we have lots of, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe how expensive it is to actually operate a YouTube channel when you start hiring professionals to help you behind the camera, so to speak, to hopefully put out the best content that you can. And we are just, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. We try to bring you the relevant information on cases that are going on today. We like to talk about the old cases. We like talking about cold cases. I mean, some of the most interesting cases I've ever done have been cold cases, and they are interesting and they're fascinating. But usually by the time they solve them, they're pretty darn close to getting solved. And these days, it's usually because of obviously DNA evidence. So, we like to talk about that. But what we really like to do is be able to explain what's really going on in the criminal justice system. Why are the attorneys doing things? Why are they not doing things? Tactical decisions, explaining that. And what I really like is that I've received, personal emails. And if you want to send me an email, you can do so at Scott, Scott, Reisch, REICH.com. I try to get to the emails. Can't promise I'll get to you same day, but I try. In my law practice, I always try to return emails in the same day. But to ScottReisch.com, we try to do our best. But I've had people say, hey, you know what? I always thought very negatively of people that were, criminal defense attorneys, but you've, changed my point of view as it relates to maybe some, but not all, criminal defense attorneys, and really understand the process that we go through, because it is, it's constitutional rights, and we just can't give those up, ladies and gentlemen. And you can't, if you're going to be intellectually honest and say we are going to follow the Constitution, then you have to look at the entire document, all the amendments. You can't really say, well, I only like a couple of the amendments to the United States Constitution, and I don't really care what happens to anything else. No, ladies and gentlemen, those are your rights. You never know when you are going to have to use those rights, have to exercise those rights, your family members, a close personal friend. So you just simply can't say, oh, I don't like that. It'll never apply to me. The Fourth Amendment, I'll never need that. What would I have to hide from the government? I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, you start having the government poking in your life, you're going to start thinking, hey, can they do this? Is this right? No. So you need to never, ever knowingly, you can knowingly give up your constitutional rights, for example, like in a guilty plea, but you shouldn't do it unless you absolutely have to. So, it just really, what's the word? You just can't be that picky about it. Now, one of the cases, obviously, we've talked about today, we talked about it in our video that we talked about today, was that there was a fellow inmate. And this fellow inmate was with Youre Welcome while she was in custody. And I made a couple of comments that said, oh, well, what's the word I'm looking for? The woman who they referred to as Miss Cook in this interview said she really wasn't out for anything, but she knew who Youre Welcome was. And I basically said, yeah, you can't trust, prisoners in situations like that. And I got a comment from a viewer and said, hey, Scott, I have to disagree with you about how inmates are. It's surprising, given that you actually represent, quote, criminals, end quote, for you to be so judgmental toward inmates. I've been locked up a few times, and surprisingly, I made a few friends being locked up. Almost everyone I personally encounter were very nice and who happened to run into a small bit of trouble. I have stories of days about other inmates. Doesn't mean I'd tell those stories for clout or personal gain. When I think about it, I actually thought at one point that I could get a name of an inmate and bribe her with canteen money to get information on Youre. I'd literally pay for that. The fact that a woman doesn't want to be named publicly means she's not gaining much from it. Laugh out loud. She's not a viral star overnight. That's not how things work. Your outlook on inmates is kind of bothering because I followed you because I thought you understood that not every inmate is a criminal. I just think you're getting beside yourself. Well, let me tell you what my advice was. So let me clarify this to our subscriber. Yes, I represent people that are accused of crime, and most of my clients are very, very good people. I've said this before. I can count on one hand the times where I've thought this is absolute true evil, where people were just maybe 3 times, no redeeming quality, just nothing good's ever going to come from them. Most of my clients, very, very good people. They just make good people that have made mistakes, no doubt. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And obviously in the criminal justice system, you are not there to judge whether somebody is a good person or a bad person. You're simply there to judge whether certain events took place or not, as alleged by the prosecutor. And so I wasn't saying, when I said you can't trust people in jail, I remember we had a big trial here. It was the Quest. It was a kind of the securities fraud case. They had the CEO of Quest Communications on some deals, alleged funky deals and stock manipulation, things like that. And the president, Joe Nacho, went to prison, and he wasn't my client. And he got out after serving his sentence. And somebody asked him a question and said, what was your experience like while you were in custody? And this is the guy who's, worth probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, done very well for himself, would never have to work another day in his life, and had to pay back a bunch of restitution. And somebody asked about his experience in jail. And he said that he, while in jail, had met some of the finest people that he had ever met throughout his life. And there were people in there that he could trust more than people he had ever met throughout his life. Because when somebody in custody, for lack of a better term, gives you their word, for the most part, I mean, you're only as good as your word if you're in custody. I'm not speaking from personal experience. I'm speaking from clients that have been there. So you don't want to violate that trust. You want to be somebody that can be trusted. And I thought that was interesting about Joe Nacho years ago that said that. Basically, hey, I've met more honorable people in custody than I've met in boardrooms and, other circumstances throughout his life. And he lived a pretty good, pretty privileged life, so to speak. And so I wasn't trying to disparage anyone, but I said that this Miss Cook, who said that she spent time with Lori Daybell in custody and was taking notes. But I say that to every client when I come in here. You don't talk about the facts of your case. You talk about the weather. You can talk about, the football season, the baseball, whatever. But you don't talk about information about your own case while people are in custody, because people will roll on you in a heartbeat if they think they have information, particularly a homicide case. All right. Sometimes it's referred to as the golden ticket. All right. I literally have had prosecutors come to me and say, hey, we think your client knows something about blank homicide. We'll make him the deal he can't refuse if he tells us what he knows. Because he was either in a cell with somebody, or maybe he witnessed it, or somebody confessed to him, normally is a situation. And so you just simply, you have to always be looking out for that, because you don't know what some people will do. I've had clients that were upset that somebody, stepped in front of them as it related to using and cleaning the microwave. And they maybe it was on video, so allegedly stabbed somebody because of that. They were disrespected. Other people just want to go home. Who knows at what point when somebody's in custody, they find out, mama's dying, daddy's dying, and they want to go home. Okay, now it's time to go home. What information do we have? And so that's why I said that. I don't think that most people in custody, most people go to custody, they just want to do their time and get the hell out, or, get their pretrial, get through the pretrial process and get out. They're not in there looking for information on cases. But the mere fact that this woman said she was trying to get information, trying to gain her trust, you're not looking to gain trust necessarily from what I've heard. You're more looking, if somebody goes into custody, not to offend anybody. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. So we can certainly talk about Lori Vallow. Obviously her attorneys have done that. Then we have Leticia Stouk, and I just saw this go by, and I just want to double check it. As it relates to the competency, because obviously that's a big case, and it's the kind of case where it's going to draw a lot of attention from the courts, from the media, just given the nature of the case and the age of the deceased child. Let me just take a quick look at this before I speak on something. I like to have my facts straight before we absolutely go there. I don't want to get burned, which is, oh God, she's okay. That's the letter. Let me take one more look. Okay, there's a minute order issued 9/3 in the Leticia Stouk case. I like this. The court filing. I am providing you with some dates for the proof evident hearing, just in case that will be part of the discussion we'll be having on Tuesday. We can start at 8:30 or 9 a.m. on each of these dates, and then the court lists several dates from October 12th, 13th, November 9th, 12th, 13th, 23rd, 24th, December 14th, 15th, and 18th. And they received in a sealed envelope from the Office of Behavioral Health, played in Division 15 inbox. So that would indicate that the competency evaluation is in fact done as it relates to Leticia Stouk, who is alleged to have been involved in the incident that's resulted in the death of Gannon Stouk. So, that's been an interesting case just simply because Leticia Stouk obviously had her attempted escape. She had her incident where she was going to be charged or is charged with the conspiracy to escape, writing letters to the court saying how, basically want to go home. Just kind of a whole, hasn't been able to see her attorneys yet. She's working on her doctorate. All these charges are wrong. And that's, we talked about this the other week. That is the thing that scares the attorney the most when you get a notice from the court that you have in fact been, the judge has received a letter from your client. You're just like, oh my gosh. So it just is never a good thing. And, and this is what I love about criminal law. First of all, what I love about the law is you learn something new every day. There's something you're going to learn in the case, whether it's the case at hand, something you haven't thought about, done anything in a couple of, couple of years, or you just learn something new about a particular procedure, a business. It's just always interesting, something new going on. And it's never dull, because just when you think you've seen it all, somebody does something else. So it's just always interesting to me, and hopefully it interests you, and hopefully we can explain what that means. Now, let's briefly talk about Leticia Stouk. Okay. Assuming she comes back competent, what does that mean? Well, then either side can object basically and say, hey, we want another hearing. If she came back competent, the district attorney is not going to say, I want another evaluation. The defense then has a right to ask for another examination to be done. Normally, and I'm surprised the public defenders didn't do their own kind of contemporaneously, particularly if they had some idea what was taking place. But you never know. Never know. We have competency comes up quite a bit in cases, and it isn't the sense where people say, "Oh, he's not competent." We've had clients over the years that have been, um, it just what's the word I'm looking for? It's never the crazy ones that want to go be comped. Let's just put it that way. That's probably the best way to do it. When the clients come to you and say, "Oh, I think I've heard the voices. I hear in these voices and they're telling me things are going on," or just acting stupid, just completely weird. And there's no necessarily hint of it. I mean, normally those things present themselves unless there's been maybe some sort of injury or something along those lines. But, uh, I've had lots of clients over the years we've had to comp, and, usually you meet them in jail and they just think that they're delusional. They know just enough what's going on. But when you listen to them closely, you're like, they have no concept of what is really taking place here. And that's what competency is to basically to appreciate and understand the charges against you, the roles of the people in the courtroom. It's not a huge threshold, for lack of a better term. If you can fog a mirror, you're basically competent. You can say who the judge is, what they do, the roles of the parties, understand your charges. That may be enough to be competent. Sometimes there's in fact truly mental health issues. It is so it's a fascinating area of the law, because there's so many people in the criminal justice system that have either diagnosed or mostly undiagnosed mental health issues, and so many of them treat those issues via self-medication through drugs and alcohol. I've seen that so many times over the years. Sometimes it requires getting deep into, their family history, medical issues, things along those lines. I just saw a super chat popped up. Sometimes those are much easier. Like I said, don't ask people to do it, but when they do, appreciate it. But it does make it a heck of a lot easier to see when it goes by. Is it snowing in Denver yet? Yes, it's starting to spit a little snow, but although I thought the big stuff was supposed to hit last night, didn't come. Frankly, I was a little disappointed. We're talking 90 degrees. The lovely Miss Kristin and I were up in Beaver Creek for the weekend, and it was literally 90 some odd degrees. And then there was forest fire smoke, which kind of made it overcast. And then we got home and kept waiting for the snow. And, she was going to cover her plants. The lovely Miss Kristin was going to cover her plants, and really didn't die from the frost. And all it did was rain. That was it. Nothing. And now it's just starting to just starting to spit a little bit of snow. Let's see. Okay. So vegan tattoo. It's snowing. Yes, it is. And I'm getting ready for it here in Taos, New Mexico. And by the way, it's green chili season. That is starting now. So obviously Taos, New Mexico, green chilies, definitely. They have the Hatch's green chili down there. And I did a case down there. Can't believe it's literally been almost 2 years now. Did a case down Las Cruces, New Mexico, and got that matter resolved. But man, everything in New Mexico, it's not what you order, but what are you going to have with your green chili? It's everywhere, but it is the best green chili. So can't wait for that. I actually had a client the other Friday. Client, old client came in, asked the question, said, you don't need my services. What did they do? They brought me tamales, and they were so good. So good. I just love it. I love when clients do that, because, sometimes, people promise you the world. Oh, Scott, if you could take care of this case, I'm going to pay you a bonus. Oh, you know what? How about you just pay your bill, and then we'll worry about bonuses that we all know you're not going to pay later. because it's not going to happen. As soon as you're done, Scott, I'm done with you. Why don't you just tell me the way it is? I'm not going to say. So when somebody actually falls through, and every now and then you get a card, which is nice, but somebody brings you a gift like that. That's just, it just kind of makes your day. And, I don't know why. It probably shouldn't, matter. I mean, you're getting paid for your services, but it's just kind of nice because, people don't have to do that. And it's just very nice appreciation. And I've had people send me stuff like, mugs. They're like, hey, Scott, you say this all the time, kind of let it go. Nice lady. I wish I had her name in front of me right now, but sent me a nice mug. It's just very nice. Sherry, going back to our previous comment, it says, hey, I'm a felon in Arizona, and there are good and bad inmates, just like everything. But like everything else, take people's word very cautiously. Yes, you do. Okay. And so we have to do this, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm telling you, if you were in custody, wouldn't you like to know what somebody's in there for? A lot of times inmates do. They want to see the charges, right? Because there's that hierarchy of charges of people. There's certain charges you don't want to be in there for. Well, you can at least do that in the regular world. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for background subscription search, and you can find out just about anything you want about anyone that you search. And when you hit that little search button, you're going to get a report. While you wait, it's going to have emails that are associated with a particular person. And there's some lady, let me just tell you this, left me a horrible review and said, there's no way that he uses that Crime Talk search in his practice. Want to bet? I can tell you, we won a defamation lawsuit, and all we had were these weird emails coming through, and we traced it back through CrimeTalkSearch.com background subscription service. I'm telling you, my oath, I can prove it. And so when you do that, you get their report. You're going to get emails associated with a particular person. You're going to get phone numbers associated with the person. Social media profiles. You're going to get information about property records, criminal records, marital records, property records. Don't you think that's important? Bankruptcies. Those things matter. And you're going to make good decisions based upon that. And wouldn't you like to have as much information as you can? You can cancel at any time. It's not expensive, but I'm telling you, wouldn't it be nice when you say, man, I wonder what that person, I think there's just something not right about him. Go and check them out. You get a report, and it's done anonymously. So no one's going to know that you're doing it. That's the beautiful thing. CrimeTalkSearch.com. Sign up today. All right. So above and beyond ancestry. So Leticia's competency evaluation came back. She is fit, but now defense is asking for a second one. So everything's on hold yet again to November 12th now. And the judge saw her wacky letter to him. Yes, that was a wacky letter, Leticia Stouk. Okay, question here from Mindy. Crime Talk. Why would Mr. Pryor want charges dismissed for not enough evidence? Isn't that what Judge Edding's ruling was for? Yes. That motion is going nowhere. All right. We've talked about this before, but the reality of it is the preliminary hearing is a screening device to protect people's rights. So if they're in custody, obviously, who wants somebody who has been wrongfully accused of a crime to stay in custody any longer than they need to be, right? I don't think if we had to have a show of hands, no one would say, I want innocent people to stay in custody, right? No. Well, guess what? We've talked about the procedural aspects before, but when you are charged, a judge reviews an affidavit for either an arrest warrant, when someone is first brought in and says, yes, there's probable cause to hold somebody. Very low standard of proof. Preliminary hearing, same standard of proof. The government just simply has to present some evidence to each and every element of the offense charged. The legal standard is that the judge has to view the evidence viewed in light most favorable to the prosecution. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. When you have to view the evidence in the light most favorable to prosecution, that means drawing all inferences in favor of the prosecution. And so literally the prosecutor calls the agents to the stand. They regurgitate the affidavit for the arrest warrant, and the judge finds their probable cause. Now, sometimes you're going to get something good out of a preliminary hearing, and Mr. Pryor did get some good things from that preliminary hearing. Makes his client feel good, but it wasn't going to change the end result. The end result was the case was going to be bound over the district court. Mr. Pryor filed this transcript basically saying, hey, judge, I want you to take another look at this. The judge isn't going to throw it out unless there's something obvious in the record, completely devoid, where the prosecution did not present some evidence as it relates to the crime charged, to one of the elements of the crime charged. Well, the lower judge would have found that, and given the low standard of proof, it's not going away. So Mr. Pryor's motion to dismiss, I think, is good for him. He's, sometimes that stuff is to keep clients happy. I watched that entire preliminary hearing. The case got bound over appropriately, in my opinion. I did not see anything or didn't lack anything where the case shouldn't have gone on. Was it the strongest case in the world? No, but guess what? That's a different standard of proof at trial, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So, all right. Good evening, Jolene from Australia. Wow. Got people from all over the world. Jackie, Scott, just wondering, have you ever taken a case you wish you had not because you knew their guilt, or how do you handle that? Have we ever taken a case you wish you had not? Yes. And it wasn't because I was concerned about the evidence at hand. It's usually the client. Most of the time, after doing this for like I said, 25 years, you can kind of feel the problem clients. And I'm not meaning they're going to be demanding, say, hey, I didn't do it. I expect that. But the ones that just literally, there are some of them, I'm telling you, not most of my clients are good people, but there are some of them that you go through it and you're just like, you have sucked the life out of me. I mean, literally sucked the life out of me. No matter what you do, you say, hey, I think we should do this. I think you should do this. And they second guess everything. And then you start, well, really, how many trials have you done? How many times have you been to court in your life? It's clients like that make you do it. But I've never had a case and say, ooh, I think they're guilty. What? No, my job is there to protect their constitutional rights, make the government present their evidence and be able to withstand the rigors of our constitutional rights that make the prosecution prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I swear to God, let me just give you one example of clients. I had this lady as a client once. I won't say a name, but I'm telling you, the worst. Would call random times, it's 8:00 on Tuesday night. I want to talk about my case. I'm like, hey, but you had to talk to her because World War III would break out. And, I was just like, okay, fine. I just got to get through this. It's going to resolve. We go to trial. She literally, I swear, true story. I'm sitting there. I thought a pretty good closing argument, right? The judge clearly doesn't like my client. The district attorney, she's making good points. It's her second closing, right? Prosecutors always go first. The defense goes next. And then the prosecution gets a final close because they have the burden of proof. They get the last word. And so I sit down, and you always sit down after a closing argument and think, man, I wish I had said that differently, or man, I forgot that. But, you're usually limited by time and there's only so much you can do. And you don't want to insult the juries by just going over the same stuff over and over and over again. So, I'm sitting there, closing argument done. Prosecutor gets up and the client looks over at me and she goes, "She's giving a better closing argument than you." I am getting up and walking out. This is ridiculous. And I literally like pointed my fingers like, "You sit down right now." Right. And of course, I'm the biggest bag of trash ever. Oh my God, I'm going to jail. You're terrible. You're not only you're a terrible attorney, you are the worst human being ever. How could you have lost this case? I'm like, whatever. Can we just wait and see? And guess what? Jury comes back 30 minutes later. Not guilty. Well, this client got in trouble again in another case. And she had contacted another attorney, and the other attorney called me up, and it was like a Saturday morning, and he's like, "Hey, I got this mutual old client, your client, my new client, and she really wants you. She says you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. You saved the day. Can't do anything without you, Scott. You're the best." And I told the attorney on the other side, "That's very nice, kind words. But I made a promise not only to myself, but to my staff that I would never represent this particular individual ever again unless the retainer of $1 million was deposited in my trust account and I had not a penny less." And the other attorney laughed at me on the other side. And he's like, "Oh, that's funny, Scott. But so what do you need to get it on the case?" And I literally said, $1 million, not a penny less. And he laughed again. And I had to say again, I'm not doing it. And guess what? That client went on to drive that new attorney absolutely nuts. And it wasn't because their case was good. There's just some people that are so demanding, so unappreciative that you wouldn't believe. And I get it. Clients are scared. Clients, they're having these concerns. Their whole life is coming, at them, and they could lose it all. They could lose their marriage, their job, relationships. It's scary. And we're not talking about, we're talking a serious felony. We're talking if there is a DUI. People are scared. They don't know what to do. They've never been through this before. And so they oftentimes take out their panic and frustration on yours truly, the attorney. And not just me, I assure you. Attorneys talk amongst themselves. And there are lots of clients that require $1 million retainers. So let's see here. Kristin Ashwood, thank you very much. The best crime show on YouTube, hands down. Always glad to get my fix. Well, Kristin, let me add to that. And I'm going to say something, and I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody. All right. So this was Labor Day weekend, 3-day weekend. Crime Talk 1 is still down, but not for long. Crime Talk 1 will be back soon, and we will be on the road, ladies and gentlemen. But needless to say, we made some last-minute plans, the lovely Miss Kristin and I, and we went up to Beaver Creek. And if anyone has ever not been to the Rocky Mountains, it is truly spectacular. The worst thing about the mountains these days here in Colorado, just the mere number of people. All right. 4 hours. Think of all the things that you could do in 4 hours, ladies and gentlemen. You could get on a commercial flight from Denver and fly to New York City, 4 hours. Normally, it takes about an hour and a half to get, with normal traffic from Denver to Beaver Creek, which is just a little beyond it's just a little beyond Vale. Took 4.5 hours to get home the other day. All right. But I digress. So 4.5 hours to get home. What did I have to do? Because we were up there to relax, to not do anything. And really, it was one of the first times that I was able to actually look at some of the other channels on YouTube to see what they were doing. And I don't want to, like I said, I'm sure I'll offend somebody, but I was pretty happy with what I saw. And comparing it to what we do and what we talk about and the background and the knowledge that we can provide, I thought this is pretty good. And to all those channels out there who clearly watch our channel, because I mean, literally, we were the ones that a lot of the stuff that breaks as it relates to Lori Vallow case, we've put up first. Literally, as we've come on the air, it's come out and we've talked about it. And then literally, I see 15 channels talking about the exact same stuff that we talked about. And then they give this analysis like they've been practicing law for 25 years. I'm like, gee, I wonder where they're getting that from. Hey, more power to you. This is, free market capitalism. And, if we could just get YouTube to let everybody compete fairly, I think we would crush them. But I was pretty pleased to see let's just say there's a lot of people copying what we do or try to do that. So, like I said, I want to thank everybody for watching. We're at almost 134,000 subscribers. That's, when we started this little channel, I was thinking, man, if I could get maybe 500 subscribers, that would be good. And then, things started taking off and it's built over time and it's been steady. And, we've had several videos that have over 1 million views. We just want to thank you all. And I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and watching, because we do try to give you the facts and we try to give you the analysis as it relates to what a lawyer is thinking, to really, let's think like a trial lawyer. Not somebody that's never practiced a case, tried a case. Maybe someone that's maybe 30 years removed from ever trying a case, but somebody that still tries cases and says, this is what I would be thinking about if I was trying that particular case, or this is what they're thinking about tactically. That's what we're trying to do and explain here. And I've always said the reason we started this channel is because I became so frustrated with watching the evening news, or, even having cases covered where I've been in the courtroom and they write a story up in the newspaper and you literally scratch your head and think, were they in the same courtroom as I was? Because that's not what happened or took place in any way possible. But the person from the newspaper has no idea what they're talking about. They're just taking notes. They don't understand what's being done or why. So, let's see. I'm sorry, but no, I have BPD and you. Let me just take a look at this. Okay. One second. What? I got to take a look at that. I'm not sure if. Okay, I was just looking at the comment there. I couldn't tell what that's about. Sometimes you have to read the comments. It's other people commenting amongst themselves, and I'm not sure. Someone else's experience with that person. BPD, bipolar disorder. Correct. So anyway, as long as they reference you, Scott, I don't see a problem, but they should be giving you credit, like Linda from It's Crime. I and listen, I don't need the credit, but let's at least just simply say it the way it is. I mean, to all those people that copy us, you're welcome. You're welcome. May we send your children to college on YouTube revenue. All right. That's imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I like it. I mean, that's true, but we would like to be the place that people come to when you want to talk about facts. And that's the funny thing. I get beat up in the comments because I kind of let's look at the facts, right? What was it the other day, Frank? The Rittenhouse case. Oh my gosh! I mean, first we laid it out, okay, and then we said, all right, let's take a look at the first incident. Let's take a look at the second incident, and we broke it down. It's like, well, the second incident probably a better self-defense case. The first one, not so much, right? Like, we got the problem. Some people are like, how dare you? I'm unsubscribing. How could you not support it? It's clearly self-defense. I'm like, well, from what I've seen, I don't know. That's probably going to be for a jury to decide. Other people are saying, how could you possibly say it was self-defense? He shot 2 people, blah, 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 blah. How dare you? And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, you must be analyzing the facts neutrally when both sides disagree with your analysis. All right. The Ahmaud Arbery case, the one down in Savannah, Georgia. People are like, it's self-defense. They were chasing that Mr. Arbery. He's a criminal. I'm like, there's no evidence that he broke into any house. You can't chase somebody down, attack them, approach them with a shotgun, and then you get to say that's self-defense. And people thought I was crazy. We pulled the statute. We pulled the jury instruction in that case, read it out loud to people and say, listen, this is the law. Whether you like it or not, that's the law. That's what's going to be presented. That's what I, as a criminal defense attorney, deal with. I deal with reality. I have to have these conversations with my client all the time. Good fact, bad fact. Here's the law. 50-50. You could win at trial. You a betting man? Like you like gambling? You willing to go put it all on, on black and see if the little ball lands on black? Or are you a little more conservative? You want to maybe hedge your bets a little bit, take a deal. Those are the conversations we have. Everybody thinks if you're a criminal defense attorney, you just go in there, you're a complete advocate, ignore the facts, be damned. Oh, hell no. There's nobody that looks at the facts closer than the criminal defense attorney because cases are won and lost on the facts. Most of the time, cases, and this is where I think it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, we hire investigators on just about every felony case. Because the law is settled. We know what it is. It's about who is going to get the best facts. It could be that one little fact. Go re-interview that witness one more time. See if they remember anything differently. Hey, this is what you told the police that night. Is there anything you forgot to put in there? Because we know it was crazy hectic that night. Oh, yeah, there was this. Well, why didn't you say that? Well, nobody asked me. Yeah, because that would have helped the defendant or that would have helped somebody else in the case. So that's what we look at. And so even if we look at these cases and we're not on the case itself, we're trying to analyze this case as though we were on it based upon the facts. And guess what? So many times in criminal cases, the facts change. New information comes in. And like I said, over the years of doing this, I used to have clients come in when I was young and they would be like, this is what happened. Let me tell you what happened, Scott. It was the greatest injustice that ever took place. It was a travesty of a mockery of a sham. I can't believe this happened to me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then I get the discovery. And it's not exactly what the client told me it was. Okay. And just like when you're a district attorney and you think, oh, this is a great case, this is terrible, then the defense attorney sometimes presents you some evidence. So just like all of these cases, whether it's the Ahmed Arbery, the Rittenhouse case, as it relates to the Jacob Blake case. There's new information that comes out that's presented. And if you're going to look at it objectively, and that's what we try to do, let's look at these cases and think about it like a trial lawyer. And any trial lawyer will tell you, you could lose any case, no matter how strong you think it is. You could win any case. I have won cases I should have lost because one piece of evidence comes into evidence differently than the prosecutor originally thought that it would. I've lost cases where I thought I was in the game on it because some evidence came in or didn't come in as we had anticipated. So those are the things, and that's why I think it's easy to pick sides in today's world. You're just like, I pick this side because this is what my political party thinks is fair. I'm going to pick this side because this is what I think my political party thinks is fair. Ladies and gentlemen, there should be no politics in the law. The law is written, yes, by politicians, usually who can't or don't understand what the hell they're doing. Most of the laws are written by the district attorney's council, the lobbyist for the DA's office. And they go and they write these laws, and they're terrible. They write them terribly. And why do they write them terribly? Because they're knee-jerk reactions to a crisis of the day that they have to pass a law to make sure this never happens again. They pass the law, and what does that do? It makes sure that my kids get put through college because of a poorly drafted law written by the legislature, proposed by the district attorney's council, so lopsided that is clearly unconstitutional. That was the politically expedient thing to do. So everybody needs to take a deep breath. The law is supposed to be reason removed from passion, right? That's what they do. They want to teach you how to be a lawyer. Everyone says, oh, you think like a lawyer. Well, what is that supposed to mean? You mean you're looking at it objectively? Yes. That's what you have to do to think like a lawyer. I know people that say, prosecutors, I could never be a defense attorney. I just couldn't do it. I'm too invested in the victims. Hey, who doesn't want victims to get justice? But if we convict innocent people and send them to prison to make a victim feel good, but it's the wrong person, I don't see how that is justice. Right? And normally what you think is going to turn out to be is what happens. Justice is usually done. It usually works out the way it's supposed to. So, like I said, it goes back to, let's think like a lawyer. Let's think like a trial attorney. And to do that, to really analyze a case, to be objective, you have to look at the facts, not the facts you wish you had, not the facts you think are coming. You have to look at a case objectively and simply look at what is there. Okay? Just like when a prosecutor, doesn't matter who I think did it, a prosecutor looks at it and says, what can I prove? Defense attorney looks at any case, whether they like their client or not, and just because you represent a defendant doesn't mean that you're condoning what they're accused to have done, or in fact may have done if they're convicted. You're protecting their rights, but you have to look at it objectively. I tell every client, I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your case, because you need to know whether you go to trial or take a guilty plea so that you have an honest assessment of your case. And I know attorneys out there, they'll tell anybody anything they want to hear to get their money in the door. I'm not doing that. I don't do that. All that does is create hate and discontent. All right. You said you promised this. No. And read my contract. I make no promise or guarantees as the outcome or the duration of these matters. Because when you sign up a client, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have the discovery. How could you possibly know what is true or not? Just like I said, client's biggest travesty, a mockery of a sham. Oh my gosh, you get it. And that's not there, but everyone does it. And that's what we try to look at when we analyze things on this show, so that people can look at the case objectively. And like I said, we must be doing a pretty good job of it, because we can offend both parties, both sides, when we in fact analyze a case. So we'll see. Let's see here. Andrea, let's say good question. Wouldn't communication between a judge and a defendant outside of court proceedings be considered a conflict of interest of the judge? No, it's not uncommon, particularly for the court, and that sometimes includes the judge's staff, the court staff, people you have to be the nicest to in the world to make sure you get things done, to communicate for scheduling issues. Now, if one party were to approach the judge, that would be a problem. Okay. And I've seen that before, where somebody will type an email and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I put opposing counsel on the email. We need to schedule a new date." So if one party reaches out and tries to communicate with a judge, that would be inappropriate. And that's why most judges, sometimes, you walk into court and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Reich, and Miss District Attorney, we all please approach. Hey, I saw the motions that were filed. I saw it was going to go on. Scheduling timeline. How much do you think you need?" The defendant's not there, but both counsel are there, and it's on the record, so that to eliminate any need for any appearance of impropriety. So no, those kinds of communications. And I assure you, there's nothing of substance going on outside the presence of the defendant. The defendant has an absolute right to be present for all proceedings. And normally, if there was some sort of communication, like where they said, "Hey, I see you both, we have scheduling this afternoon," most judges will say, when the defendant's there, "We're on the record today, and just make it clear for the record, I held a brief bench conference with defense counsel and the district attorney. We discussed this." And the judge will oftentimes ask, "Does that fairly characterize our conversation today?" Why? To avoid any appearance of impropriety. It's not ex parte communication, because that would be one side going to talk to the judge on their own, which no judge would actually do that. You don't have a right not to be offended, I think, Scott. She is feisty. Well, that's just general. You don't have any right not to be offended. I don't think that's any particular scheme, because if you think about it, most people in the political parties are all offended by each other on either side. So yeah, it's what can I say? Nobody has a right not to be offended in the eyes of the law. In the eyes of the law, there's no crime. There's no cause of action. You can't sue somebody for that. I was offended. You hurt my feelings. I mean, you have to have more than that. Let's see here. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that judge's chambers with this Leticia Stouk's letter. Yeah, the judge can't comment. I bet there was probably some conversation between he and his clerk, like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe this? Like, this is going to be one of those cases." I bet that's what the judge and his clerk said. "Oh, this is going to be one of those cases." It's one of those cases. It's already, not that there's a schedule for criminal cases, but everything gets paused when the Leticia Stouk matter, competency is raised, and if it's re-raised, it just gets stopped. And the judge is like, can't we just move these things along? But we have to make sure it's a fair process, right? That's what separates us, the good guys, from a lot of other places in the world where you don't get, due process. People still think, "Oh, you're guilty. Good enough for us. Send you away." Yes, Allie 79, her peanut butter notes, her death threats in her peanut butter. And so it seems like that's where people were hiding, is the way I read her letter. Yes. Scott Reich for president. Let's talk about that. Nancy Long. Yeah, I don't think the lovely Miss Kristin would go for that in any way possible. And I wouldn't, and the only way I would vote for me is if I didn't want the job. I'd like people that don't want to be in politics full time. In politics, just saying generally, I think career politicians, and this is just me speaking, this is for both sides of all the parties. I think if you're a career politician, anything over, I don't know, 4 years, maybe 8, let's just say 6, a Senate term, 6 years. As far as, for the state or for the federal level, most states are 4. Give you one and done, man. We don't need these people. My theory and philosophy should be, and I think I should submit this. We have jurors in this great country, and jurors decide serious cases, whether it's a traffic case, a homicide, a complex antitrust case, patent infringement cases. Juries are smart people, and you can't fool juries. So think about how juries are selected. They randomly select people. They say, come on down. You could be selected for a 1-day trial, or it could take 3 months. And you find people that are there and they say, okay, I've never been a juror before, but am I qualified in any way to do it? And the judge will say, well, can you listen to the evidence? And the juror says, well, yeah, I think I can do that. Judge will say, can you reserve judgment on the evidence until I give you the instructions on the law? And that's basically, you have to wait till all the evidence presented. And the juror says, yeah, I think I could do that too. And he says, and then can you follow the law, the jury instructions, applying the facts that you heard in court to the law with neither passion nor prejudice for either side? Apply the facts to the law. And the juror says, yep, I think I can do that too. Guess what? They're a qualified juror. So why couldn't we do that for our politicians? Say, let's bring in all the qualified people and say, we're going to need you. Most jurisdictions, unless you're in like California or something, and we know how screwed up California is, right? Why is California so screwed up? I would suggest because their legislature is full time. They come up with the craziest stuff. I think they come up with things to do out there. There's some legislatures in states that meet every other year. I think Texas, Montana come to mind. Some are limited to 3 months. And guess what? It's that cooling off period. So let's say you bring in all the potential people into the little districts, little House districts, Senate districts, and they say, you're a potential legislator here. Let me ask you a couple of things. Do you think if we hold a hearing on a subject of whether we should create a new law, do you think you could listen to the evidence? Yeah, I think I could do that. Do you think that you could reserve judgment to hear all the evidence in the case, both sides? Yeah. And could you come up with a decision, whether it be funding or create a law of some type, with neither passion nor prejudice towards any particular party, just something that's in the best interest of the state? Well, yeah, I think I could do that. So juries do that. Why can't we have regular everyday citizens? And if you've ever met some of these legislators out there, ladies and gentlemen, they're nice people, but some of them, let's face it, they're there because they can't find work anywhere else. And if they stay there, you really got to wonder, why can't they find work anywhere else? Right? It really makes you think, what are they there for? Well, they're probably there for the power, which is another reason why we need to limit people that should be there, just in my humble opinion. Because if people rotate in and out, like juries do, we do it every week. Well, almost every week since COVID. But, we don't need career politicians in anything. If somebody's in politics for, like I said, 5 years, 4 years, give them 6 years. You got to wonder, what's wrong with you that you can't go find a normal job, one that pays probably more, unless, of course, you're making more money on the backside. Because let's face it, unless you're in the federal system, a state legislature, I mean, you're making what, $36,000 a year? For what? So it's not the money, then it's the power. You know, pay the legislators these days like you pay a juror. Give them, was it $5 a day? I think it is, or $50 a day after the first 5 days. But you get people that are willing to do it and to do that. So, all right, we totally digress. But legislators draft laws, and legislators drive me crazy because they usually draft really bad laws. Why does a jury of your peers often have people with completely demographics? Well, Marissa, a jury of your peers is the people at large in the community. It doesn't mean because if it looks like from your profile picture that you're a white female. That is, a jury of your peers is the people in your community, not people that look like you, not people that think like you about any particular views. It's a random selection of people who can say they can listen to the evidence, reserve judgment until they hear all the evidence in the case, and then follow the court's instructions, and having neither passion nor prejudice for either side, make that decision. Cowgirl up. Have you ever had a client whom was innocent but found guilty? Yes, I have. And it's cases like that that keep you up at night. I've had cases where people have tried to recant and said, oh my God, I lied. And neither the DA nor the courts were particularly interested in any way. But it normally works out the way it's supposed to be. A real job, not turning around and becoming a lobbyist. That's correct. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Petition your government. You have a right to petition your government. That's being a lobbyist. You can hire advocates to go and state your position to your legislators, which more power to them. I just don't think that politicians should take those trips, shouldn't take those European educational trips that they get to take through all these organizations. Don't think they should do that. And it should all be done in public. A courtroom has to a judge has to conduct his business in open court on the record. Why shouldn't a politician literally say, I'm having office hours, here we are. Okay, guess what? Speak up, because it's all being recorded over there. There's no side deals. I mean, think about it. When you go to court, you go in there and the judge will ask you, this is the plea agreement. There's been no other promises made to you anywhere by anybody. Because understand, if it's not written down here in this plea agreement, it doesn't matter, right? So yeah, those lobbyists, they should be able to talk to anybody they want in government. Just make sure it's on the record and nobody's getting a penny to any of the politicians. So there you go. That's just me. Boy, I feel better. Got that off my chest. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, seriously, want to thank you all for watching. Oh, let's see, written by the victims in mind. Scott, do you think most laws were written with victims in mind or for political points? Yes. Both. I think the politicians try to write laws, obviously, to protect victims because we don't want anyone to become a victim. We talked about the other day. I was a victim. I had bikes stolen out of my garage, and it pissed me off. All right. Nothing more. Well, the one thing you don't want, a pissed off criminal defense attorney. Now, I realize they're probably never going to find my bikes. And I realize no one will probably ever be prosecuted. But if, in fact, it was discovered who came in my side gate, went into my garage, opened my garage door, and took the bikes out of my garage, I assure you, I will be at every court appearance, and I will come down on you. But yes, politicians write it, yes, usually for the victims at the time. Usually it's high profile, if that's what they're there to do. And they're doing it to score political points for themselves. So yes, I don't know if that is I don't know if that is answering your question. Maybe it upsets you. I'd like to think that most laws were written, to seriously solve an issue. But like I said, what I think is important when you look at some of these states that don't meet every year or are not in session the entire year. I mean, think about it. A politician is like their government. They got to be able to produce something, right? So what do they do? We pass so many bills. I was in the government once, ladies and gentlemen. I know how it works. When I was in the Marine Corps, they would ask, how many cases did we prosecute? How many cases came in? How many did we file? How many went to trial, plead guilties, dismissed, whatever. That's what they do in the government. They keep track of the little ticky-tacky scores. How many cases do we do? How many of this? How many inquiries do you take? It doesn't matter. You pick the agency in the government. What do? Ticky-tacky lines, right? It's their justification for more funding. So if you got a legislature that's in session, what do? They're going to say, you guys were there all year and only passed 30 bills? Have they ever repealed anything? How about repealing some bad laws? That doesn't happen very often. And so they, you're there all year. You got to act like you did something. If you're only there for, the job expands to the amount of time given. And so that's where we stand on. That's my humble opinion on that. We'll see. But, legislators make bad laws. Thanks for the legislators because they keep guys like me in business. Hello, Scott Mods, and everyone smile. Life is good. Yes, it is. But jurors can be fooled. Look at how many people go to jail that are actually innocent. Usually when jurors are fooled, what does it mean? It usually means they found out later that the government withheld evidence, right? Think about all the cases that we've talked about where somebody has been released either because of new DNA evidence, and the people that originally testified, it was faulty eyewitness identification, one of the most unreliable things you can possibly have, particularly unknown individuals. Or the government withheld exculpatory information, evidence that would decrease the defendant's guilt. That's right. And so that's usually what happens. When the jurors get fooled, they made the decision with the evidence that they had. And so I guess we'll just leave it at that. They got fooled because they didn't get the full picture. Let's see here, but caps in chat, nothing new. Let's see here. Okay, I'll leave that stuff. Let's see. There was a jury on a murder trial in UK that hit the hotel bar and deliberated using a Ouija board. That's like going to the Magic 8 Ball. I don't know if we can see the Magic 8 Ball. All right, maybe that should be our Magic 8 Ball question of the day. Magic 8 Ball. Should we go to Ouija boards in making decisions in homicide trials? Magic 8 Ball says without a doubt. A Ouija board. Wow. I'd never heard that one before. Thanks for sharing that, Catherine Hamblin. I appreciate that. That made me laugh tonight. Full-time legislators never have to abide by the laws they make for businesses and workers. That's true, Lynette. Most of the laws that are passed are exempt in a lot of the, in the houses, or they don't apply to members of Congress as well. Angela, California is in the house. Nice to meet you. He was talking about, can't comment on it though. He is talking about politics. Yeah, I wasn't really talking. I was talking about legislators, which has legislatures that pass laws and how that affects them. And my own little theory on how we could pick them instead of via elections, because I think the election process is so flawed. Let's face it, the people that get on the ballot, like really, I mean, I don't know about you, but I got a job, man. I mean, to sit around and go to dinners and have some party people say, you are now blessed and you are next in line. Like, I don't know about you, but I think I'd be pretty good at it. But I'm not going to go volunteer stuffing labels or flyers for somebody someday so that I've paid my dues to say that now you can be legislator. No, how about we just randomly select people? I think they would do just as good a job because I think jurors take their jobs very seriously. And I think they would do just as, I think, it's like the old thing where they showed the monkeys that throw darts and they pick stocks that were just as good as, stock pickers sometimes. I think if you chose random people, they would do just as good, if not better, than any politician in the system. So you school them up, you give them a couple of weeks. This is the procedure, this is the process. These are the rules, follow it. If you got a question, let's go to the court. It's very hurtful. Scott, not all attorneys are honest like you. Thank you. Been there, done that. And it can ruin a person on trust for the judicial system. It's hurtful and very expensive. Yep, it is. I don't know what else to say other than, you gotta, when you hire an attorney, you got to make sure you feel comfortable with them. And if they make promises and guarantees, that's just wrong. I know I tell clients, hey, listen, just example, somebody called the other day. It was a DUI, low BAC, and they're worried about going to jail. And I said, listen, I can't make you a promise or guarantee. If there may be something that, you're not telling me about, but no, they're like saying this is exactly the way it is. Okay. I said, well, I can't make you a promise or guarantee, but I feel pretty comfortable in predicting you're not going to go to jail given the jurisdiction that you're in and the judges your case is assigned to. I'll tell them that. But yeah, the people that make promises, you can't do that in the law. It just is so tough and so many things change so quickly. Let's press some time out with no warning. Okay. I don't know. All right. All right. I want to thank everyone. A professional jury would be corrupted. Absolutely. You could start telling what people like, don't like. You could, oh yeah. Yeah. We don't need professional jurors. Let's see. Is Lori Vallow legally married to her husband, Chad? Who the hell knows? I'll be honest with you. I've seen stuff that says that they didn't file, something with the, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't file the marriage certificate, so maybe it's not legal. I don't know. I haven't delved that deep into the woods. Frankly, it doesn't matter for the court proceedings in any way what's possible. It's a conspiracy. Yeah. So let's see. Albanian Anissa. If attorney promises you anything, that's a problem. Other than to do their best job, I agree. I always tell people, man, if that attorney promises, guarantees it, you better go hire him now. But make sure before you leave that office and you pay your money, get it in writing. I've had lots of people come back to me over the years like, I just want to talk to one more attorney. They're like, yeah, came back to you. So, all right. Thank you. We want to let everybody know, obviously, thanks for tuning in. We're going to do our Patreon show after this. So if you have not joined Patreon, we will kind of pick up where we left off here, probably in about 15 minutes or so. Then we will also remind you, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can get your gear at the links below at Teespring. So you like the lawyer mug, you can get that there. You like the Crime Talk mug, you can get that there. You got stuff. You can go to ScottReisch.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter that we'll send out to you, and it's free. Whoever gets free stuff from lawyers, that's right. Nobody gets free stuff from lawyers. We're giving you free stuff. It will keep you, informed of other cases that maybe don't make the cut for the show on a daily basis. Something that's, interesting to me. I've always questioned, it's like, oh, we were in Vail Beaver Creek this weekend. Should I send a picture up and put it up on Instagram? Like, I don't know if people like that stuff or not. I mean, I don't want to come across as being a jerk or saying, ooh, look at me, I'm having a great life or anything like that. But if people are interested in that, I want to know. So let me know. Best way to do is send me an email or let us know on that. Laugh Out Loud. Do the dumb criminals, have they ever claimed their awards? No, but we've sent out some mugs. But haven't got any feedback yet. We changed it because nobody collected. So now we're just sending them to the winners. But we'll see how that works out as far as maybe we can get an interview with some of these people. The lady today, what was her name? Can't remember her name, but wanted to conspire to kill her husband's lovers, with whom he'd had a child with. Of course, she calls like her friend who's like a correctional officer for advice. Like, are you kidding me? Scott, what is your favorite food to eat? Seafood. Melonville Gal. Have you ever seen, there's this place now, there's Joe's Crab Shack, right? There's Joe's Crab Shack. Yeah. There's Joe's Stone Crab out of Miami Beach. All right. They have stores or restaurants in DC, Chicago, and Las Vegas. And I've eaten at every one of them. That is the best seafood ever. Stone crab claws and then the Alaskan king crab legs. Amazing. I could eat seafood every day. Absolutely love it. And a good steak every now and then isn't bad for sure. All right. Thank you all very much for watching this evening. Like I said, we're going to go to our Patreon here in about 15 minutes. If you haven't signed up, do so, please. Appreciate anybody that does sign up. And in that particular format, we have an opportunity so that we can talk with you directly. We'll have a call-in line. We can stack people up and have a conversation. We'll talk about whatever is on your mind, pretty much as long as it's related to the law and cases that we're following out there. So in Patreon, about 15 minutes. Have a wonderful evening.